This video is powered by KR Mangalam University. What will it take to revive negotiations between Iran and the United States? After the 21-hour-long rally of talks failed to yield any results over the weekend, everybody has been worried that it will end talks and resume the bombs. But to everyone's surprise, as volatile as it is, the ceasefire is holding. But does that mean diplomacy is thriving? Not exactly. I'm Ananya Datta, and here's what it will take for suited men to return to the negotiating table. The US and Iran had agreed to a 2-week ceasefire, which makes April 21st, exactly a week from now, as the deadline day. Negotiations are a lengthy affair. Take the JCPOA nuclear deal that was signed in 2015 as an instance. It took all parties to wrangle through almost 2 years of back and forth to then agree only to a framework. Essentially, Iran had agreed to limit uranium enrichment to below weapons grade level, and the Western countries relaxed their sanctions to revive the Iranian economy. Until, of course, Donald Trump was elected to the White House, and the rest is history. But JCPOA's negotiations did not take place with the dagger of war vigorously swinging, and that makes current negotiations even more urgent and crucial. You see, all options are on the table. The United States could resume the military onslaught. What could follow has hints in the last social media post the president put out before announcing a ceasefire deal. He had said then, and I'm quoting, "It will be a power plant day and bridge day all wrapped up in one in Iran." So a resumption of airstrikes could directly threaten civilian infrastructure like the power plants and bridges, something that is a violation of the international law.
Wow. Whoever we speak to, we say accept us within the framework of international law. We do not act against international law. You should accept those same international laws. They want to eliminate anything that leads to growth and awareness.
There are also suggestions that the confrontation in the Strait of Hormuz could get more intense. The strait is already under a twin blockade as we speak. But to escalate the situation, the US could start attacking Iranian vessels transporting oil to a handful of countries like China, Pakistan, Thailand, and others. The option of a ground offensive has still not been ruled out. An outright invasion like Afghanistan might be an unlikely outcome, but a special operation of, say, Karg Island has been discussed. There are about 50,000 American personnel in the region waiting for the word go. But keeping in mind that Donald Trump's deadlines tend to be elastic, experts are weighing more on the non-military options. We are getting optimistic reports that a new round of in-person talks between the US and Iran could be held as early as this week.
And I can tell you that we've been called by the other side. They'd like to make a deal very badly, very badly.
The war in Iran is extremely layered. We can't simply pinpoint on one thing and say that this is the reason the two sides are fighting. Having said that, the key sticking point in the talks is Iran's enrichment of uranium. The International Atomic Energy Agency, which is the United Nations nuclear watchdog, has estimated that Iran has nearly about 500 kilograms of highly enriched uranium, enough for 11 nuclear weapons. Now, Tehran disputes this figure and says that the enriched uranium is still buried deep underground. But this is a no-go policy for the US.
Iran, you marking it down? Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. And we agreed to a lot of things, but they didn't agree to that. And I think they will agree to it. I'm almost sure of it. In fact, I am sure of it. If they don't agree, there's no deal. There'll never be a deal.
Now, these kinds of maximalist demands are common in the early days of any negotiations. In fact, they are a great starting point, after which the two sides work towards a middle ground. And that middle ground could be 5 to 20 years. Let me explain that. So the US delegation is demanding a 20-year suspension of Iran's enrichment of uranium. Iran has reportedly offered a shorter moratorium of about less than 10 years. Now, experts are cautiously optimistic in calling this a starting point.
The failure of the first phase is not in and of itself necessarily a sign that talks, if they were to continue, would fail. It may very well be that the first round was supposed to be a failure. Neither side may have wanted to give the impression that they came to an agreement too quickly. They could be opening themselves up for criticism at home that they may have given in too much or too easily.
The US president has thanked the Pakistani delegation for their work as a mediator. Last week, the US president also called Pakistan's army chief Asim Munir as quote-unquote his favorite field marshal. Now, Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has headed to Saudi Arabia, Turkey and Qatar today to discuss three things: a peace process, a proposal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and discuss Iran's demand for war reparations. Now, experts have their reservations about Islamabad playing the mediator, but in the list of priorities, ending the war is far greater, even if it comes through Islamabad. And it's not just Pakistan. Local media houses are reporting that mediators from Egypt and Turkey are also working to revive negotiations between the US and Iran before the current ceasefire expires. So with the back-channel diplomacy going strong, who wants negotiations more, the Americans or the Iranians? You see, Iran's delegation meant business when they arrived in Islamabad last weekend. Reuters reported that Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf were removed from the hit list so they can make Iran's case. And since the start, this has been an asymmetric war, which means that the US has always outpowered the Iranians. But for Tehran, this war is existential, so its goal isn't to win the war, rather just to survive. Washington does not have this privilege. It holds the burden of starting this war. It has been abandoned by its European allies and could face the wrath of its voters, who may use the November midterm elections as a referendum on Trump's foreign campaigns, from Venezuela to Iran.
Whether we have further conversations, whether we ultimately get to a deal, I really think the ball is in the Iranian court, because we put a lot on the table. We actually made very clear what our red lines were.
As frustrated as the vice president sounds, he seems to be the best bet that the US has. There are reports that Iran has been insisting that JD Vance led the US delegation for future talks as well, as Tehran does not trust Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff and the president's son-in-law Jared Kushner as reliable interlocutors. Twice in the past, Trump has launched military attacks while Witkoff and Kushner were negotiating.
Look, honestly, after 49 years, there's a lot of course, mistrust between Iran and the United States of America. You're not going to solve that problem overnight. But yeah, I think the people we were sitting across from wanted to make a deal. And I know the President of the United States told us to go out there and negotiate in good faith. That's what we did. That's what we're going to keep on doing. So you never know, though.
For Vance, this could also be the make it big or go home moment. If there is no deal and the US engages in a prolonged war, Vance could become a sacrificial lamb. And if there is a deal with permanent peace promised, it could elevate his profile ahead of the 2028 presidential elections. As unprecedented as this war is, it has already produced two historic diplomatic breakthroughs: a direct high-level conversation between the US and Iran, and Israel and Lebanon sitting across the table for the first time in over 3 decades. The next few days and possibly weeks will tell us whether these breakthroughs translate into peace on the ground. Let us know what you think on the comment section below. I'm Ananya Datta. Thanks for watching.